Before we dive into this chilling tale, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories. You won't want to miss the true, dark accounts I'm about to share. So sit tight and let's begin. It was a late October evening when I first set foot in Harrison's Hollow, a small town tucked away in the heart of Illinois. I had just gotten my first assignment as a rookie cop, and, to be honest, I had no idea what I was stepping into. I didn't think much of it at the time. After all, it was a routine night shift. I had always dreamed of becoming a cop, but that night, I realized not every dream is meant to be fulfilled. I remember the rain tapping against the windshield as I pulled up to the old, crumbling police station. The town was small, quiet, almost forgotten, with narrow roads, dark corners, and old, run-down houses. The kind of place where you could walk around for hours without seeing a soul. And tonight, with the storm raging outside, it felt even more deserted. The station wasn't much to look at. It had a few broken windows, the paint was chipped, and the brick walls were cracked. Inside, it smelled musty, like something had been left untouched for decades. The lights flickered, barely staying on, and the air felt heavier than it should have been for such a small place. I stepped inside, and I could feel my stomach tighten. The quiet was unnerving. I made my way to the front desk where an old man sat in front of a stack of paperwork. He didn't even look up when I entered. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me, sir. I'm Officer Rayan. This is my first night here." The man, who must have been in his late 50s, looked up at me with tired eyes. His gaze felt cold, empty. "You're here for the night shift, huh?" he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "You're in for a long night." I asked him if everything was all right. He just nodded. "Sure, everything's fine," he said. "Malik's in the back if you need him. He's been here forever." I didn't know what that meant at the time, but the name stuck with me. Malik. I'd heard about him. An old officer who had worked in this station for years, known to be a bit odd. But he was the only one here tonight. I made my way to the back office, the hallway so dim I could barely see. The walls were lined with old case files, some yellowed with age. The air felt thick. As I reached the door, I knocked. No response. I pushed the door open slowly. Malik was sitting at a desk, staring blankly at a pile of case files. His dark eyes flicked up at me, but it was as if I hadn't even entered the room. "You must be Rayan," he said, his voice so low it sent a shiver down my spine. "Welcome to the station. Don't mind the place. It's not what it seems." I nodded, trying to push the unease down. "I'm just here to get started." Malik didn't speak for a long time, his eyes locked on the file in front of him. Finally, he motioned to a chair. "Take a seat. We have time." I sat down, and as I looked around the room, I noticed a strange thing. The walls were lined with old newspaper clippings, unsolved cases, missing persons, and one name stood out among them all. Case 217. It was an old murder case from 1987. The file was large, and the photographs were unsettling. The crime scene photo showed a man, or what was left of him, blood, shattered glass, and something else. Something darker. I couldn't stop staring at it. Malik noticed me looking at the file. "That case," he said, his voice trailing off. "It never got solved. Some say it was the work of a monster. Others others say it was something worse." I didn't know what he meant, but before I could ask, Malik got up and walked to the back of the room, muttering something under his breath. I was left alone in the eerie silence, staring at that file. The rain outside grew louder, and for a moment, I could have sworn I heard something in the hall. The sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate. But when I looked up, the hallway was empty. I tried to shake off the feeling, but the darkness in that station was sinking in. It wasn't just the building. It was something else, something in the air. It was suffocating. The hours dragged on. I kept glancing at the clock, waiting for the shift to end, but every tick of the second hand seemed to stretch longer. Outside, the storm raged harder, and the rain pounded against the windows. It felt like the world outside was miles away, as if the storm had sealed us inside the station, trapping us here. Malik hadn't returned. He was still in the back, lost in his thoughts or maybe something more. I could hear him muttering to himself, but the words were hard to make out. It was strange. I had never seen a cop so detached, so distant, as if he wasn't really here at all. I decided to walk around, maybe check the other rooms. The station was small, but there was a tension in the air that made the place feel like it was much bigger, like it was alive with something I couldn't see. As I passed by the old evidence lockers, I noticed something odd. One of the doors was slightly ajar, and a faint sound came from within, a soft, scratching noise. I approached cautiously, my heart racing. I pulled the locker door open slowly, not knowing what I'd find. Inside, there was nothing out of the ordinary, just files. But then, my eyes landed on something strange, a blood-stained shirt stuffed at the back of the locker, half hidden behind a pile of other files. The shirt looked old, but the blood was fresh, almost as if someone had just placed it there. I froze. My mind raced. Could this have been from the murder case I had seen earlier? Was this evidence that had been overlooked? Or was it something else entirely? I took a step back, unsure of what to do. But before I could decide, I heard Malik's voice behind me. "Rayan, you found it, didn't you?" I spun around, my breath catching in my throat. Malik was standing there, watching me, his eyes colder than before. His expression was unreadable. "Malik, what is this?" I asked, holding up the shirt. "This wasn't here earlier." Malik didn't respond immediately. He just stared at me, his gaze piercing. "Put it down," he said finally, his voice low and firm. "You don't understand what you're dealing with." The way he said it sent a chill down my spine. His warning wasn't just about the shirt, it was about something deeper, something much darker. I set the shirt back in the locker, unsure of what to do next. My head was spinning. I couldn't focus. The room felt smaller now, the air thicker. I needed answers, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to find them. Malik's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist before I could turn away. "You're here now," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You're part of it." Before I could react, he let go and walked back toward the back office, leaving me standing in the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. I stood there for a moment, staring at the locker. The scratching noise was gone now, replaced by a heavy silence. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I needed to understand what was going on here. I had to figure out why I was being dragged into this nightmare. But just as I turned to leave, I heard something, footsteps, faint but unmistakable. Someone was walking down the hallway toward me, slowly. I didn't know who it was, but I could feel my pulse quicken as the footsteps grew louder, closer. And then they stopped. I turned around, but the hallway was empty. No one was there. I shook my head, trying to dismiss the fear creeping up my spine. I had to stay calm. This was all in my head. But the more I tried to convince myself, the more I felt like I was being watched. I walked back to the office, hoping to find some sense of normalcy. But as I stepped inside, I realized something was different. The air felt colder, and the atmosphere was heavier than before. Malik wasn't sitting at his desk anymore. Instead, the room was filled with a strange stillness. I approached the desk cautiously, scanning the room. That's when I saw it. On the desk, partially hidden under a stack of papers, was a small VHS tape, its label scrawled with interview suspect number 0. I reached for it, but my hand trembled as I picked it up. My mind screamed at me not to watch it, but I couldn't help myself. There was something about that tape that drew me in. As I placed the tape into the old, dusty VHS player and pressed play, the screen flickered to life. The first thing I saw was a man, a suspect. I assumed sitting in a chair, facing the camera. He was disheveled, his face gaunt, his eyes wild. He started speaking, but his words weren't coherent. They sounded like chants, strange guttural sounds. His eyes darted to the side, and for a split second, I thought I saw someone behind him. I froze, unable to look away. The man's voice grew louder, more frantic. He was begging, but it wasn't a plea for help. It was something else. It was like he was trying to warn me. And then I saw it. Behind the man, standing in the shadows, was a figure. It wasn't human. It couldn't be. It was tall, hunched over, with dark, hollow eyes that seemed to stare right through me. The tape suddenly cut out, leaving only static on the screen. My heart raced as the room went silent again. I sat there stunned. What had I just seen? What had I just opened myself up to? I looked around the room, but Malik was still nowhere to be found. But I wasn't alone. I could feel it. Something was here, with me, and it wasn't going to let me leave. The silence in the room felt deafening after the tape cut off. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, the loud thud-thud echoing like a drum. I glanced around, expecting someone, anyone, to walk through the door. But there was nothing. Just the flickering lights, the hum of the old equipment, and the cold air that felt like it was pressing in from all sides. I reached for the VHS tape, feeling the cold plastic against my fingertips. My hand shook slightly as I pulled it out of the player and set it back on the desk. I didn't know what to think anymore. The figure on the tape, it wasn't like anything I had ever seen. It was like a shadow, but worse. It moved, it breathed. And its eyes, they didn't belong to anything human. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and I felt the urge to run. But I couldn't move. Something was holding me here, something invisible but strong, like the weight of the building itself was pressing down on me. I needed answers, but the more I searched, the more I felt like I was sinking deeper into whatever nightmare this place had become. I stood up from the desk and paced around the room, trying to shake off the sense of dread that had settled over me. Then I heard it again, the footsteps. Soft, deliberate, slow. They were closer this time. My chest tightened as I glanced toward the hallway, but no one was there. I backed away from the door, my breath shallow and quick. I had to find Malik. I had to ask him what was going on, but every instinct screamed at me not to. Not to open that door, not to step out into the darkness. But I had no choice. I walked into the hallway, the creaking of the floorboards under my boots louder than ever. The station seemed to be alive now, the walls closing in, the air thick and suffocating. I moved past the empty cells, past the interrogation room where I had just watched that tape, until I reached the back office. Malik was sitting at his desk again. He didn't even look up as I entered. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he asked, his voice flat, almost bored. I nodded, my throat tight. "What is that? What was on the tape? What did I just see?" Malik finally looked at me, his eyes dark, almost like he was studying me. "You shouldn't have watched it," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Once you see it, you can't unsee it, you can't escape it." I felt a cold rush of fear flood through me. "What do you mean? What is it?" He stood up slowly, his movements stiff, unnatural. "That man on the tape, he wasn't just a suspect. He was the first to try and stop it. The first to see what we're dealing with. But he failed." I felt a knot form in my stomach. Failed at what? Malik leaned closer, lowering his voice even further. "This station, this place, it's cursed. Those cases you see, they're not just old crimes. They're part of something much worse. Something that has been feeding off this place for decades." I stared at him, confusion and fear mixing in my chest. "What do you mean? What's feeding off this place?" Malik turned away, his face clouded with regret, as though he was seeing something that I couldn't. "You'll understand soon enough." he muttered. The room felt colder. The walls seemed to move closer, like the space was shrinking. I could hear that scratching sound again, soft, coming from somewhere deep within the station, like something was trying to claw its way out. I glanced at Malik, but he was no longer looking at me. He was staring out the window, his expression distant, as if lost in thought. His eyes were wide, almost frantic, and his hands trembled. I followed his gaze, my own eyes searching the shadows outside. But all I saw was the rain pouring down, in sheets, blurring everything beyond the window. "You need to leave," Malik said suddenly, breaking the silence. "It's already too late for me." I took a step forward. "What do you mean? What's too late?" But before he could answer, the lights flickered violently. A loud crash echoed through the station, followed by a low growl, like the sound of something moving, something far too large for the confines of the building. I felt a chill crawl up my spine, and I spun around. The hallway was dark now. There was something in the shadows. A figure, tall and thin, with eyes that glowed in the dark. And then it spoke. "You shouldn't have stayed," it said in a voice that wasn't quite human. "Now you'll never leave." My breath caught in my throat. The figure moved, stepping into the light, and I saw its face, if you could call it that. The skin was stretched, pale, almost translucent. Its eyes were black, lifeless voids that seemed to pull me in. I turned to Malik, but he wasn't there anymore. The room was empty. The figure was getting closer. I ran. I didn't look back as I ran through the hallways, my feet pounding against the wooden floors, echoing through the dark, empty station. The sound of my breath was the only thing I could hear, sharp and frantic, as panic surged through my chest. Every corner seemed to stretch into infinity, every door a potential trap. I needed to get out. I needed to find a way out. The figure from the hallway, the thing with those glowing eyes, it was following me. I could feel its presence, like a dark cloud pressing down on my shoulders, making it harder to breathe. Every time I glanced over my shoulder, it was closer. Its steps were silent, but I could feel its coldness creeping closer, like it was just waiting for me to make a mistake. I reached the front door, my hand shaking as I grabbed the handle. But it wouldn't budge. It was locked. I pulled harder, slamming my shoulder into it, but the door didn't move. Panic surged in my veins, and I yanked at it again, desperate. "Let me out!" I screamed, the words feeling foreign in my mouth, like I was begging for something I couldn't control. But then I heard it. A voice, low and raspy, coming from behind me. "You can't escape," it whispered. "You're already a part of it." I spun around, heart pounding in my ears, but there was nothing there. The hallway was empty. I turned back to the door, desperate. This couldn't be happening. The storm outside was pounding harder now, the sound of rain hitting the windows like 1,000 fists. I could see nothing but darkness beyond the glass. I pounded on the door again, tears of frustration threatening to spill from my eyes. What was happening to me? What was this place? Just then, the lights flickered again, and I froze. The room went black for a second, and when the lights came back on, I saw a dot. It wasn't standing in the hallway anymore. It was right in front of me. The figure. It was towering over me now, its face inches from mine. Its hollow black eyes locked onto mine, and I couldn't look away. I felt like it was pulling me in, like it was suffocating me with its presence. The air in the room felt thick, like I couldn't breathe. "You were supposed to leave," it hissed. "Now you'll never leave. You're ours now." I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I was frozen in place, trapped by its gaze. I felt a coldness seep into my bones, like the very life was being drained from me. But then I heard it. A faint sound, the scratching again. It was coming from the back office. I didn't know why, but something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the last bit of sanity I had left, or maybe it was the sheer will to survive. But whatever it was, it pushed me to act. I tore my eyes away from the figure and ran toward the back office, my feet barely touching the ground. I could hear the creature following me, its steps growing louder with each passing second. I reached the office door and slammed it open, almost falling inside. I turned to close the door, but it was too late. The creature was already there, standing in the doorway, blocking my escape. Its eyes locked onto me once again, and I felt the chill crawl over my skin. But then, something unexpected happened. Scratching grew louder. It wasn't coming from the walls anymore. It was coming from inside the evidence locker. I ran to the locker, pulling it open, my heart hammering in my chest. Inside was a pile of old files, cases that had been long forgotten. But beneath them, hidden in the corner, was something else. A small, worn box wrapped in old string. I pulled it out, feeling its weight in my hands. There was something ancient about it, something that felt wrong. I didn't know why, but I opened it. Inside, there was an old, cracked mirror. It wasn't much to look at, but something about it seemed alive. The glass was covered in scratches, and as I stared into it, I saw something move in the reflection. It wasn't me. It was the creature. I slammed the box shut, but the image lingered in my mind. The thing in the mirror, it was still there, waiting. I turned to face the creature again, but it was gone. The door was wide open now, and I was alone in the room. I could hear the rain still falling outside, but the storm seemed less intense, now almost distant. For a moment, I thought maybe I had imagined it all. Maybe the fear had just gotten to me. But then I heard a whisper right next to my ear. You can't escape. You belong to it now. I didn't wait to see what happened. Next, I ran. I bolted out of the office, my legs pumping harder than they ever had before, and my breath ragged, sharp in my throat. The station felt like it was closing in on me, the walls leaning in, the shadows creeping forward, reaching out for me like they had a life of their own. I didn't look back, not even for a second. I couldn't. I ran down the dark hallway, my shoes slapping against the old wood. The echo of my steps was the only thing I could hear, except for the faint whispering that seemed to come from everywhere. It wasn't just a voice anymore. It was a chorus, a low hum, circling me, pushing me deeper into madness. The front door. I had to get to the front door. I couldn't stop myself. I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. All I knew was that if I didn't get out now, I might never get out at all. The creature wasn't just in the building anymore, it was in my head. I could feel it, watching me, crawling under my skin. I reached the front door again, my hand already on the handle. But then I heard something behind me. A laugh. It wasn't human. It wasn't even alive. It was a sound that made my skin crawl, like it was coming from the depths of hell itself. I spun around. The hallway was empty, but I could feel it. The thing was there, somewhere in the dark. I didn't know how I knew, but I could feel its eyes on me, cold and empty. It was toying with me. I yanked on the door again, harder this time. It was locked. I pulled and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. My heart pounded in my chest as I looked around desperately for another way out. There had to be another way, and then I saw it. At the far end of the hall, a window. It was small, too small for me to fit through, but it was my only chance. I ran toward it, my heart racing, my thoughts swirling in panic. The glass was cracked, jagged like broken teeth. I didn't think about it. I just threw myself against the window, my body crashing into the shards. Pain shot through me as the glass tore into my skin, but I didn't care. I had to get out. I crawled through the broken window, my legs scraping against the jagged edges, blood dripping down my arms. But I didn't stop. I pulled myself through, ignoring the pain. I was so close. I was free. Or so I thought. As I landed outside, my breath coming in gasps, I stumbled to my feet. The rain was still coming down in sheets, but I didn't care anymore. I had made it out. I was free, but when I looked around, I realized something. I wasn't alone. The figure was standing at the window, staring out at me. The same cold, hollow eyes. "You can't leave," it whispered. "You're already a part of this." I felt my stomach drop. The station, the creature, it was still there. It was never going to let me go. I turned and ran again, but this time I didn't know where I was going. The street was empty, the houses dark and silent. The storm was louder now, the wind howling through the trees. The town felt dead, like it was frozen in time, like nothing had ever lived here. I ran and ran until my legs couldn't carry me anymore. I collapsed in the middle of the road, gasping for air, my body shaking with exhaustion and fear. But then I heard it again, the scratching dot. It was close now, very close. I could feel the ground tremble beneath me, and I could hear the thing moving through the streets, getting closer. I had to get up. I had to keep running, but I couldn't. I was too tired, too broken. The darkness was swallowing me whole. And then, out of nowhere, I heard a voice that it wasn't the creature's voice. It was a man's. "Get up." I looked up, my vision blurry from tears and exhaustion. There, standing in the rain, was Malik. He was different now. His face was pale, his eyes wide and empty, but there was something familiar about him, something human. "Malik?" I croaked. What's happening?" "Get up," he repeated, his voice urgent. "You can't stay here. You need to. Leave, now." I didn't know what he meant, but I had no choice. I struggled to my feet, my body heavy, my limbs aching, but I did it. I stood up. Malik grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the trees. "The creature, it's not just in the station. It's everywhere. It's tied to this place. You can't stay here. You can't escape, not unless you leave for good." I didn't ask any questions. I just followed him, stumbling through the rain, not looking back. The road ahead was dark, but it felt like the only way out. We reached the edge of town, the sound of the storm growing fainter behind us. Malik stopped and turned to face me. "You've survived," he said, his voice softer now. "You're out. But it's not over, not for me, and not for anyone who stays here." He looked at the station, his eyes filled with regret. "You'll be all right," he said, "but never come back." Before I could say anything, Malik turned and disappeared into the storm. I stood there for a moment, looking back at the town. That had nearly swallowed me whole. I couldn't see the station anymore. The darkness had claimed it, and the storm had washed it away. I took a deep breath, my body still shaking. But I knew one thing for sure: I was free, and I would never look back. The following days felt like a blur. I didn't go back to work. I couldn't. Harrison's Hollow, that place, the station, Malik, it all haunted me. The storm, the figure, the whispers, they were still with me, lingering in the back of my mind, creeping into my thoughts when I least expected it. I didn't know how to explain what happened. I didn't even know if I could. Every time I tried to talk about it, the words felt hollow. I kept hearing Malik's voice in my head, urging me not to return, telling me to forget it. But how could I forget something like that? How could I forget the creature with the hollow eyes, the endless darkness that seemed to swallow everything whole? I tried to stay away. I told myself that it was over, that it was just a nightmare I had somehow survived. But deep down, I knew better. I could still feel the weight of the station pressing down on me, like it was calling me back. I knew it wouldn't stop until it had me. And then one night, a month after I left, I received a letter. It was an envelope, plain and simple, with no return address. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper, a note written in jagged handwriting that sent a chill down my spine. "You thought you escaped. You were wrong. The station still remembers you." I stared at the note for a long time, unable to move. The words burned into my mind. I thought I had escaped. I thought I was free, but it wasn't over. It never would be. The next night I had a dream. The same dream that had been haunting me since I left. I was back in the station, standing in the same dark hallway, the same silence pressing in from all sides. The figure was there, waiting for me, its eyes glowing in the darkness. But this time, it wasn't just the figure. There were others, the officers from the old cases. Their faces were distorted, twisted with agony, their eyes empty, hollow. They reached out to me, pulling me toward them, dragging me back to the darkness. I woke up, gasping for air, my heart racing. My room was cold, and the air felt thick, suffocating. I could still hear the scratching, the faint whispering that always came in the dead of night. I couldn't run from it anymore. It had followed me. It would always follow me. I stood up, my body stiff with fear, and walked to the window. The sky outside was dark, the storm clouds swirling above the town. But it wasn't just the weather. It was the station, calling me back. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to face it again. But I knew I had no choice. I had to return. That it was late again when I drove back. I couldn't explain why I was heading back to Harrison's Hollow. Maybe I thought I could find some closure. Maybe I thought I could face whatever had been chasing me. But deep down, I knew the truth. I wasn't going back for answers. I was going back to end it. The drive was long, the road twisting and turning through thick black woods. The storm had started up again, the rain lashing against my windshield in sheets. The headlights cut through the dark, illuminating nothing but endless trees and wet pavement. I could feel the weight of the night pressing down on me, suffocating me, and as the station finally came into view, I felt the same familiar cold settle in my chest. It looked different now, though. The lights were on, the windows were intact. It wasn't the crumbling, forgotten place I had escaped from. It looked almost alive, like it was waiting, like it had been expecting me. I parked outside, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I sat there for a moment, just looking at the station, feeling that gnawing sensation in the pit of my stomach. This was the place, the same place where everything had gone wrong. The place where the creature lived. The place that wouldn't let me go. I opened the car door. The sound of rain hitting the metal sharpened the stillness. The world outside was silent, except for the storm. But there was something else in the air, something I couldn't explain. Something that made my skin crawl. The door to the station was slightly ajar, the light from inside spilling out onto the wet pavement. I pushed it open, and as soon as I stepped inside, I felt it. The cold, the darkness. The presence at the station wasn't empty. It never had been. I moved down the hallway slowly, the sound of my footsteps too loud in the stillness. The old walls were covered in mold and peeling paint, the air heavy with dust. But there was something else in the air. A thick, oppressive feeling. Like the walls themselves were breathing, pulsing. A live dot, and then I saw it. The figure dot. It was standing at the end of the hallway, just like before. Its black eyes locked onto mine, its face twisted and gnarled, like it had been waiting for me. But this time, I didn't feel the same paralyzing fear. I didn't feel frozen. I felt angry. What do you want from me? I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls. Why won't you leave me alone? The figure didn't respond, just stood there, watching me with those hollow eyes. I felt something inside me snap. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding. I was done being afraid. I took a step forward. Then another. And another dot as I walked toward it. The shadows in the hallway seemed to deepen, closing in around me. But I didn't care. The figure took a step back as I advanced, but it didn't move away. It was like it was daring me to come closer. I reached out, my hand trembling, but I wasn't going to stop. I didn't care what happened. I had to confront it. I had to end this. I grabbed it. Nothing. No warmth, no movement. It was cold. Like grabbing nothing. The figure wasn't even there. It was just a reflection of something that had been haunting me, a manifestation of the terror it had instilled in me. I pulled my hand back, confused and disoriented. My heart pounded in my chest. The room seemed to be spinning around me. Suddenly, the lights flickered. And in that brief moment of darkness, I heard something. A voice. It was Malik's voice, coming from the shadows. "You can't fight it," he said. "It's already inside of you." I turned, but he wasn't there. The hallway was empty. The figure was gone. The scratching started again. It wasn't coming from the walls anymore. It was coming from behind me, loud and sharp, like something was digging its way through the station, trying to break free. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't stay here. I had to get out. But as I turned to run, I froze. The door was closed. I looked around. The hallway had changed. The station had changed. The walls were closing in on me, the shadows growing deeper, darker. The scratching was louder now. It was coming from all around me, filling the air with a sharp, frantic noise. And then I heard it, the growl. That same deep, guttural sound that had haunted me from the very beginning. I spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the shadows. Just the endless darkness. But it wasn't nothing. It was waiting for me. The growl echoed through the station, vibrating the very walls around me. The air thickened, almost suffocating, as if the station itself was breathing, inhaling deeply, drawing me into its dark heart. The scratching was louder now, frantic, closer. It was coming from inside the walls, the floorboards, the ceiling. Every inch of the station seemed to be alive, and every corner, every shadow, was filled with something waiting to consume me. I backed away slowly, my heart hammering in my chest. My hands were shaking, my breath shallow as I tried to figure out what was happening. Where was it coming from? What was it? And then I saw a dot in the far corner of the room. The shadows began to move. They twisted and swirled, undulating like a mass of black smoke, before coalescing into something darker. Something with form. It wasn't the figure I had seen before, but it was just as terrifying. It was tall, impossibly tall, its body shifting like liquid, its shape flickering in and out of existence. Its eyes were the only thing that stayed constant, two black voids, deep and endless, staring right through me. I couldn't move. My legs were locked in place, my body frozen with fear. The growl came again, louder, as if it was inside my skull, vibrating my very bones. It was close. It was getting closer. I reached for my gun, but my hand was shaking too badly to hold it properly. It felt heavy, useless. I wasn't prepared for this. No one could be prepared for this. The creature in the corner took a step forward, and the air around it grew colder, the temperature dropping like a stone into a deep well. I could feel the chill crawling under my skin, creeping into my muscles, freezing me in place. And then the scratching stopped. A silence. Complete and utter silence. I didn't know what was worse, the growl or the silence. The creature's eyes burned into mine, and its shape flickered again, its body rippling like water disturbed by an unseen hand. It spoke, and its voice wasn't a voice at all. It was more like a deep, guttural hum, an ancient sound that reverberated in my chest, like it was speaking directly to my soul. "You can't leave," it said, the words vibrating in the air, each syllable cutting through me. "You belong to us now. You were never meant to escape." The creature took another step forward, and I finally found my legs. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't stop. I just ran. I bolted down the hallway, the sound of my footsteps deafening in the silence, the air thick with something I couldn't see but could feel chasing me. The walls seemed to close in, the hallways stretching, twisting like a maze, and I had no idea where I was going anymore. My only goal was to get away, to escape, but as I rounded a corner, I stumbled to a halt. The door, the front door. It was there. But it wasn't just a door anymore. It was something more. The doorframe was distorted, like the building itself had warped around it, shifting as if the station didn't want me to leave. The door was cracked open, and beyond it, I could see only darkness. It was like staring into the abyss, a place that didn't belong to the world I knew. The growl rumbled again, but this time it wasn't from the creature. It was from the door. The shadows behind it were alive, swirling like a living thing, and I could feel their pull, beckoning me into the void. I had a choice. I could run toward the door, toward the unknown, toward escape, or I could turn around and face what was chasing me. I didn't know how I knew, but I understood in that moment that the station was more than just a place. It was a prison, and it had been waiting for me, waiting for the moment when I would return. I glanced back, my heart pounding in my throat, and saw the figure in the hallway again. It wasn't just standing there anymore. It was moving toward me, its hollow eyes locked on mine, its body flickering in and out of existence. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't hesitate. I reached the door, and as I threw myself through it, I felt the pull of the station behind me. I felt the walls reaching out, trying to grab me, to pull me back in. But I pushed forward, stumbling out into the street, into the storm. The rain slammed into me like ice, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I kept running, away from the station, away from the creature, away from the nightmare that had been chasing me since the moment I stepped foot in that cursed place. But as I ran, I heard it again. The whisper, "You'll never be free." I didn't stop. I couldn't. I just ran. I didn't stop running until my legs gave out and I collapsed onto the wet pavement. The rain was still pouring down, drenching me to the bone, but I didn't care. I just lay there, gasping for air, my chest heaving with each breath. I had made it out. I had escaped. The station was behind me, and the creature, whatever it was, wasn't following. But even as I lay there, struggling to catch my breath, a cold dread settled over me. The whispering from the shadows still echoed in my mind. "You'll never be free." I pushed myself up slowly, wiping the rain from my face, and looked around. I was on the outskirts of town now, far from the station, but it felt like I hadn't left at all. The world around me was dark and still, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something, waiting for me to look back, but I refused. I wouldn't look back. I staggered to my feet, my body aching, my mind foggy with exhaustion and fear. The rain pounded down, blurring everything around me. I had to keep moving. I had to leave this place behind. I took a few steps forward, but my legs felt weak, like they were made of rubber. My head was spinning, and my vision kept blurring. I needed help. I needed to get to safety. I looked up, trying to focus on something, anything to keep myself grounded. And then I saw it. The headlights of a car. A vehicle. It was approaching, moving slowly through the rain. I took a few unsteady steps toward it, my mind already half relieved that someone else was here, that I wasn't completely alone. Maybe they could help me. Maybe they could take me far away. From this nightmare. As the car drew closer, I raised my hand, hoping they would stop, but the car didn't slow down. It didn't stop. It kept moving, its headlights blinding me for a moment before it passed by. I stood there, frozen, as the car disappeared into the distance. Something felt wrong. I turned around, and for a split second, I thought I saw something. In the distance, just beyond the streetlights, a figure. I squinted through the rain, my heart leaping into my throat. There, in the distance, standing under the dim light of a street lamp, was a shadow. A tall, thin figure. Its face was hidden in the darkness, but I could see the outline, the familiar form. The figure wasn't moving. It was just standing there, staring at me. I took a step backward, another dot, and then I heard it. The voice. "You thought you could leave," it whispered. "But you're ours now. You'll never be free." I turned and ran. I didn't even think. I just ran, my body moving. On instinct, fueled by pure terror. I could hear it following me, its footsteps echoing in the rain, growing closer with every step. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't care. All I cared about was escaping. getting as far away as possible. But no matter how far I ran, the shadow was always there, always just behind me. I ran through the streets, through alleyways, past dark houses and silent windows. The storm had slowed now, but the world still felt suffocating, like it was closing in on me. The rain no longer felt like water. It felt like it was drowning me, pulling me deeper into the nightmare. And then I stopped. I was standing in front of an old, run-down house, one I didn't recognize. The lights were off, the windows boarded up, but the door was wide open. Something inside me told me to go inside. Without thinking, I stepped toward the door. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I just went in. Inside, the house was eerily quiet. The air smelled of dust and decay, like it had been abandoned for years. There was no furniture, no pictures on the walls, just empty, hollow rooms. And yet, I felt a strange pull, like something in this house was waiting for me, waiting to show me something. I walked deeper into the house, my steps echoing in the silence. The walls were covered in old, yellowing wallpaper, peeling at the edges. The floor creaked under my feet, but I didn't stop. Then I heard it, a soft, scratching sound. It was coming from upstairs. Without thinking, I started to climb the stairs, each step making the house groan under my weight. The scratching grew louder, more frantic, like something was desperately trying to get out. When I reached the top of the stairs, I stopped. There at the end of the hallway was a door. It was cracked open, and the scratching was coming from inside. Didn't want to go in. I didn't want to see what was in there, but my feet moved forward, one step after another, until I was standing in front of the door. I reached out, my hand trembling as I pushed it open, and then I saw it. The figure. It was standing in the middle of the room, its back turned to me. Its form flickered in the shadows like it was made of darkness itself, and in its hands, it was holding something, a mirror, the same mirror from the station. I reached for it, but my hand froze before it could touch the glass. I could feel it. The thing in the mirror wasn't just a reflection. It was me, the same hollow eyes, the same face, twisted in agony. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. The door slammed shut with a deafening crash, the sound vibrating through the walls and rattling my teeth. I spun around, my pulse racing, and tried the handle. It wouldn't budge. I was locked in. The mirror. It stood there in the middle of the room, its surface reflecting not just me, but the shadow of something else, the creature. I could feel its presence behind me, even though I didn't dare turn around. I was trapped in this room, and I knew deep down there was no escape. Mirror. It was showing me more than just my reflection. It was showing me the creature too. It was showing me what it wanted, what it had been waiting for. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my spine, and I could hear the whispers again, louder now, like they were coming from all directions. You thought you could escape. You never really left. I took a step back, but my feet felt heavy, as if the floor itself was trying to hold me in place. The mirror, its surface seemed to pulse now, as if it had a life of its own. The figure inside the mirror shifted, moved, and for a moment, I thought I saw its flicker with recognition. It wasn't me anymore. It was the creature. I backed away slowly, my breath coming in sharp gasps. The walls around me seemed to close in, the air growing thicker, heavier. The scratching was louder now, coming from all directions, as if the house itself was alive, its walls crawling with something waiting to break free. I reached for my gun, my hands still trembling from fear. It felt useless. The weight of it in my hand was nothing compared to the terror that gripped me. I didn't know how I was going to survive this. The creature was here. It had followed me, and it had brought me right back to where it all started. The mirror began to glow, faintly at first, but then brighter and brighter until it was almost blinding. I couldn't look away. I was drawn to it, as if the reflection was pulling me in. dragging me closer with each passing second. Suddenly, I heard a voice, Malak's voice. It wasn't coming from behind me. It wasn't even coming from the room. It was in my head. It's not just in the station, it's in you. I gasped, stumbling backward, trying to block out the voice. I tried to cover my ears, but the words were inside me now, vibrating through my bones. It's in me. It's been in me all along. The mirror began to crack, the glass splintering, breaking into jagged pieces, and the figure inside the mirror, the creature it reached through, its arms stretching, its black eyes locked onto mine. I turned to run, but the door wouldn't open. It was as if the house itself was holding me here, keeping me in place, making sure I couldn't escape. My body was frozen, rooted to the spot, as the creature's shadow stretched toward me, its cold hands reaching out, fingers clawing toward my throat. You belong to us now, it whispered, its voice low and raspy, echoing in the room. You can never escape. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I could feel its hands around my neck, its cold fingers tightening, choking the life out of me. But then, a sudden force, something like a jolt of electricity, ran through my body, and I gasped, sucking in air as if I had been drowning. The creature's hands disappeared. The pressure lifted. And then, I was free. I fell to the ground, gasping for breath, my heart pounding in my chest. I could hear the whispers fading, the scratching slowing. I looked up, and the mirror, the thing that had been pulling me in, was gone. The room was empty. Except for the door. It was open. Without thinking, I scrambled to my feet and ran toward the door, every muscle in my body screaming in pain. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had to get out. I didn't care what was behind me. I didn't care what I was leaving behind. I stepped out into the rain, the cold air hitting me like a shock. But I didn't feel safe, not really. The storm hadn't stopped. The world still felt heavy, oppressive, like I was being watched. I couldn't shake the feeling that the station, the creature, had never truly let me go. I stumbled down the street, my mind numb, my body sore, but I kept moving. I didn't know where I was going anymore. I didn't know how far I would have to run to escape it. But I didn't stop. And then I saw it again, the figure, standing under the street lamp, just ahead of me, its hollow eyes staring into mine. This time, it wasn't just watching me. It was waiting for me to take one more step. And in that moment, I realized the truth. There was no escape. Not really. The creature wasn't just in the station. It was everywhere, and it was waiting for me to return, waiting for me to believe that I had escaped. But I wasn't going to make that mistake again. I was done. I wasn't going back. No matter what. I turned and ran, my legs burning, my mind screaming for me to stop. But I didn't. I wouldn't stop. I kept running, the world around me blurring in a wash of rain and dark shadows. My mind was spinning, and my thoughts felt scattered, disconnected. The figure, whatever it was still there, lurking just beyond my reach. I could feel its presence pressing down on me, suffocating me, and yet, I couldn't see it anymore. Only the coldness. I was lost. I couldn't remember how long I had been running. Hours, days? The storm seemed endless, the rain cold and unrelenting. The streets around me were empty, desolate, as though the town had been abandoned by life itself. There was no sound except for the rush of water running in the gutters. No light except for the pale glow of street lamps that barely pierced the darkness. I wasn't sure where I was going, but I couldn't stop. In the distance, through the fog of rain and mist, I saw something. A building. It was familiar, but I couldn't place it at first. It was dark and looming, standing alone in the distance like a monument to my fear. The more I looked at it, the more I recognized it. The station. My heart sank. I had somehow circled back. I stumbled toward it, my legs barely able to carry me. Every instinct told me to turn away, to run in the opposite direction. But my feet betrayed me. drawing me closer and closer. I didn't understand how or why, but something inside me was pulling me to it, a force greater than my fear, a pull I couldn't escape. When I reached the doors, they were wide open, like they had been expecting me. I stepped inside, my breath shallow, the air thick and suffocating. The interior was as dark as I remembered, the walls dripping with moisture, the floor covered in layers of dust. I could feel the presence before I saw it. It was waiting for me. The figure stood there at the far end of the hallway, just like before. Its glowing eyes pierced the darkness, watching me as I froze in place. I couldn't move. It was like my body refused to obey me, my legs locked in place, my hands trembling at my sides. The whispers returned, louder now, filling my head with 1,000 voices all at once. You belong to it. You can't leave. You're already ours. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat was tight, as if it had been sealed shut, and my breath came in ragged gasps. The figure stepped forward, its shape shifting in and out of focus, like it was made of shadow and smoke. I didn't want to move, didn't want to look, but my body did it anyway. I couldn't stop myself. I walked toward it. It was like some invisible force had taken control of me, pushing me forward with each step, dragging me closer and closer to the creature that had haunted my every waking moment. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a hammering reminder of the terror that had a grip on me. When I was close enough, it spoke. You thought you could escape, it hissed, its voice like a whisper carried on the wind. But you were never meant to. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My body was moving on its own, like I was no longer in control. My eyes were locked on the creature, and all I could hear was the sound of my own breath, shallow and frantic. You're part of this. Now, it said, and there's no going back. The world around me seemed to spin as the creature reached out toward me, its long fingers extending, its touch as cold as death itself. I couldn't pull away. I couldn't move. It was as if time had slowed, every second stretching out into eternity, and all I could do was wait for it to touch me. But just as its fingers brushed my skin, the lights in the station flickered. For a moment, everything went black. When the lights came back on, the creature was gone. The hallway was empty, but I could still feel its presence hanging in the air like a thick fog. I turned around, frantic, looking for a way out. The door, the same door I had walked through just moments ago, was gone. In its place was a wall of blackness, stretching out into the distance, swallowing everything in its path. The station was no longer a building. It was a maze. The scratching started again, echoing from the darkness, growing louder, faster. It was coming from everywhere now, from the walls, from the floor, from the ceiling. It was inside my head, scratching at my thoughts, pulling at my sanity. I had to get out. But how? Where was I supposed to go? I ran down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest, my legs burning with each step. The air grew colder, and the whispers grew louder, the words echoing in my mind, urging me to stop, to give in, to let it claim me. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. I didn't know how long I had been running. Minutes? Hours? It didn't matter. All that mattered was getting away from the darkness, from the thing that was chasing me. I turned a corner and found myself in another hallway. This one was narrow, and the walls were lined with old, rusted doors. Each one was closed, sealed shut, but I knew they held something behind them, something that wanted out. I kept running, my breath ragged in my throat, but every step felt like I was sinking deeper into the station's grip. The scratching was louder now, more frantic, as if the walls themselves were coming alive. And then, I saw it, a door at the end of the hallway. This one wasn't like the others, it was different. The door was old, but there was something about it. Something familiar. I stumbled toward it, my hand outstretched, and when I touched the handle, it turned easily, as if it had been waiting for me. I pushed the door open. Inside was a small, dimly lit room. There were no windows, no furniture, just a single old chair in the center of the room. And sitting in that chair was someone I knew. Malik. He looked up at me, his face pale, his eyes hollow, but he was still alive. At least it seemed that way. You shouldn't have come back, he said softly. I didn't understand. What do you mean? What is this place? What's happening? Malik stood up, slowly, his movements stiff, unnatural. This place is where everything ends, he whispered. You can't escape it. Not now. Not ever. I felt a chill run down my spine, and for the first time since I had entered the station, I felt a pang of hope. Maybe I wasn't alone. Maybe Malik could explain it all, but the hope quickly faded when I saw his eyes. They weren't the same anymore. His eyes were empty, like hollow pits, and when he spoke again, his voice was no longer his own. You can't escape it because you're already part of it, he said, his voice distorted, echoing with something inhuman. You've been here before, just like I have. The station knows you. It will never let you go. The room around me began to shift, the walls bending and twisting like they were alive. The floor beneath me seemed to ripple, and I could feel the station pulling me in, dragging me closer to its core. You can try to run. You can try to fight, Malik's voice continued, his form flickering. But it's useless. You're already inside. The station owns you now. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering in my chest, and for the first time, I truly understood. Station wasn't just a place. It was a force. A living, breathing entity that fed on fear, on desperation. And it had claimed me. The truth crashed down on me like a wave, drowning me in terror. There was no escape. No way out. The station had already claimed me, and no matter how far I ran, it would always find me. Always pull me back. I turned to run again, but the room was closing in on me. The walls were narrowing, the shadows creeping closer. The scratching grew. Louder, like the whole station was shaking with hunger. Malik's form flickered one last time, and his voice echoed in my ears. You can't escape it. You never will. And then, everything went black. When I woke up, I was standing outside again. The storm had stopped. The town was quiet, but the station was there, looming in the distance, waiting, and I knew without a doubt that I would never be free.